morning to the masses out there. Welcome, welcome. Hola. Hello. Am I on? I'm on. So, welcome again. Thank you everyone for joining us for the newer folks. This is such an interesting dynamic. So, there's no accent, so we're gonna have an intimate group today, but it'll be fun. So, we always start out with all that excitement of catching our breath and re-energizing us with 3 deep breaths. And I invite us to make a noise on the way out, a deep sigh. And what it does is it vibrates that heart chakra, any angst off of it, or just increases that love vibration into it. So I invite us to do this together, 3 deep breaths with noise on the way out, always inhaling as much as we can and exhaling to completion. So deep breath in. Another deep breath in. And one more really, really nice deep breath in and a long sigh on the way out. So it's just fun and relaxing and feels warm and fuzzy. So this is our favorite part, and it's called announcements. Yay! Usually the crowd is roaring. So we have a lot of people on journeys this week. So bless everybody on their journeys. We have some people out sick, so bless them in their health. Brother Brian just had a major neck surgery, and he's now home, but he's still got a lot of healing to do. So continue sending love and light to him, and he's grateful for all the healing prayers that were sent to him. So know that he's grateful. He's talking better than I thought he would. He had a neck surgery. Uh, he said he thought he sounded like Pee Wee Herman. I'm like, I'm like, no, not as bad. Maybe a little bit of the chipmunks, but his spirits. He was busting my chops yesterday, saying that he had climbed up on his roof to adjust his antenna, and now he was stuck there. And I'm like, what? And he starts laughing. I'm like, man. So his humor is still there, because I was ready to drive to Rockledge, visualizing him stuck up there, and I'm thinking, where's Rick? The guy's supposed to be there while he's convalescing, but it's the coyote in him busting chops, so his spirits are still good. So again, thank you everybody for sending that love. Tonight for Diversity Night, and for the newer folk, what we do every Sunday night from 6 to 7:15 is have a different thing, hence the Diversity Night. The very first Diversity Night we ever had, we did improv, which we're going to be bringing back soon. We've had kirtan chanting, we've had we've had Oracle Within type card readers. We've had a lady the owner of Mrs. Mangles, come in here and do a whole talk on just bees and honey and all the wonderful things that bees. So many different things. So tonight, what we're going to be doing, a few weeks ago, I talked about, as I married today's talk, I'll kind of let you know where that gets married into, but we're talking about the different parts of our personality, the different dimensions of us, the cosmic part of it, the 3D part of it, the incarnations of our souls, and I'll be getting into that as I do a review. But one of them was about what happens when we get into that higher self or inside self and do an automatic writing. So what we're going to do tonight is take time with it and have fun with it, called The Power of Your Other Hand, and do some automatic writing, get in touch with some different aspects of ourselves through the power of writing with, for me, left is my dominant hand, writing with my right hand, and getting in touch with the different things. So I'll have a few different questions posed on purpose for you to ask that inner self, and we'll do that dance. We'll spend about an hour to hour and 15 minutes. It's from 6 to 7:15. Always a love offering type scenario. No one ever turned away. We just have fun with it. Next week, I believe we're going to be doing for Diversity Night, I think, a drum circle. If my memory serves me, with Scott and Becky, and just hang out. And we have drum circle every Tuesday, second and fourth Tuesday, with Fred Goodnight in the room over there. And that's a love offering type scenario again. And Fred Goodnight's been in our community for years, just teaching people rhythm and soul and the joy of drumming. So he always makes it playful and delightful. So that's a separate entity than our casual drum circle. You may. Wow. 80? 80? Does not compute in my brain right now. An on purpose one. A surprise on purpose one. On Tuesday the 13th. Okay, let's and we'll get with Becky and when she comes back and we'll core yeah, but incognito too. Are we live streaming this part? Okay, everybody in live streaming, don't tell Fred. It'll work. Yeah, and that's such a reflection back of love. Groovy. Let's get as many people as we can on this. That's exciting. Yeah. Okay, cool. So we must spread the word as incognito. So get in touch with that, channeler in you and imbibe it to your friends. Yeah, groovy, groovy. So on Wednesdays we do Course in Miracles here, and it's about an hour and 50-minute group again, and it's kind of Course in Miracles metaphysical conversation too. So we go off on our tangents, but we always have fun. We read a little and talk a lot instead of reading a lot and not talking at all. So we're barely into the sixth chapter. We were doing it for a year, but we read a little and talk a lot because we all have that different perspective, and that's what Course in Miracles is about anyway. Everybody's interpretation of it, where you are in that moment. So that's always fun. On Thursdays, Dale is our bass player. He's not here right now. He's not feeling well, but he's going to be starting a class on June 8th for 6 weeks for the different world religions. So in that, it's going to be a love offering type scenario, but it's a 6-week course where each week they'll talk about one of the world religions, draw from it a practice or ceremonial practice, and invite you to do that for the week. That ceremony or that dogmatic practice or whatever. He might not use the word dogma, but that ceremonial nuance that uplifts, because in every religion there's something that uplifts. So he studied all these different things and he's bringing that to the game and the wonders of him. And it's going to be a really neat class. So I invite you to do that. Again, it's always love offering type scenario. No one ever turned away. And beyond that, those are the announcements, except for this. I keep reminding people and even new people, so you can be on our list, to fill out membership forms so we can put it on our 501(c) for our criteria for the year, but also so you can be involved with what's going on in the pod. And when we have your email stuff and your Facebook stuff, we can add you to our pod page as well. And then when we have because we have concerts here, if you look on that back wall, you'll see all these different, in the other room by the coffee, all these different musicians that have been here. Some of the songs that we just sang, Peace Today, Faith Rivera, she's been here. One Big Family by Gary Lynn Floyd, they've been here. Let me see who else has been here. Richard McDecky has been here with Just a Little Faith. So we're a small community, but we attract really powerhouse new thought singers and people that are in the Posse Music Awards that's done in Tampa every year. And that's our concert wall. And for some reason, even though we're such a small community, people really, when they hear about it, they want to come play at the pod because of the energy we create here, because we just love this kind of stuff. So that's more of what we're about, and we'll sign off with announcements. And for anybody who wants to tech tithe, we have the square. So afterwards, have to make my announcements, man. It's like, and now we're done. So now we're done with the formal announcements. And I invite us to just take a nice deep breath again, get back into our hearts and get out of our heads and just, as I move stuff around. So let me negotiate my 3D world for a moment. Because I like a cool world, and I got the span on. I like to turn it towards me. Okay. So a moment ago, I was talking to you about all the talks I've been doing. And I'm a very metaphysical, very cosmic person, but we're in a 3D universe, and it's always an inside job, is what I will tell people. So as we're wanting to broaden ourselves and awaken more and more and get into those higher levels of consciousness, I'm always going to say groovy, but your God self is fine, your spirit's fine, God is fine, God, Goddess, all that is fine. The humanness sometimes is what needs tended to. So I'll do it in all different ways. And in the past couple of months, I've broadened the horizons into owning that we do live in a dimensional world, a dimensional universe, in a multidimensional universe, and that from any moment of our day, we're actually shifting dimensions all the time the moment you change your mind about something. And that metaphysics is a non-physical thing, but yet just as powerful as our thoughts are to move us or to keep us planted, to have us inspired, passionate, and to create wonderful things in our life, I challenge you to put those thoughts in my hand. It's impossible. They're not physical. So playing in the arena of both the 3D and the beyond, 4D, 5D, and all those wonderful things, we started talking about incarnations and letting time be more linear than it was chronological, and knowing that past lives were more of a childlike way of looking at it, because it's an all-dimensional, all-now thing. And that I do have my markness, and I am in my unique incarnation and experience of the all that is, just like you are. And that any given moment, we can change our perspective and to do a walkabout and appreciate the other one's carnation and to truly let go of ourselves. So then we talked about last week, letting go of my ego, or letting go of my ego, and those ego parts that disserve us, those ego parts of us that just get in the way of our greater good, which is what today's talk is about, that broader experience, but never from a place to kill anybody inside, never from a place to that ego deflation at depth. And I playfully was talking about last week that nobody inside would want to do any work if we thought the cause was going to be death. We would stop in our tracks from any form of enlightenment. And that some people on their path to enlightenment are almost afraid to continue on their path because they're afraid they're going to lose themselves. But there's something that they have to truly tear off and throw away. And I'm likening it to more of, it's just going to dissolve, and it's not going to be noticed as much. It's going to be a subtle thing as you continue your awakening, just as the other parts of you that awakened were subtle. You didn't lose yourself. You're still you. So you still get to be you. So today we're going to look at the ego now in a different way, because in all these different science books, or not so much science, but self-help and psychology books, the ego's been looked at in many different ways, and sometimes been really beat up, as if our journey here is to get rid of the ego. Now, I'll always have a mantra of wanting to pop the bubbles of illusion within me and pop all the bubbles of illusion within my ego, and to integrate, so to speak, to the where I have enough of my ego left just to stay physical, to keep that molecular agreement, because there's really no reason that we're in form, really, cosmically, because the universe is expanding all the time, and within us we have this cosmic dance going on. But we're also in a 3D experience with all these feelings, all these thoughts going on in our body, and all these sub-personalities. So there's been different movies along the way, and I've been talking about them recently. A while back ago, there was a movie with Michael Keaton called Multiplicity, and it was a comedy, and it was very playfully done, and he kept cloning himself. And every time he cloned himself, a different aspect of the personality is what arose, and that was the persona of that clone. And I think he did it like 4 times, so there was 4 of him, and it was hysterical. It was funny, and I thought, wow, what a neat way of doing that. Now, you know, we're all kind of a little older generation, but there was also a cartoon called the Smurfs, and they did it wonderfully too, because there was all different kinds of little personality Smurfs, almost like the 7 Dwarves, but even more. And there was Vanity Smurf, and there was Grumpy Smurf, and there was Builder Smurf, and there was, I may be making up the names now because I don't remember all the names of the Smurfs, but each one had a different personality. And there was even Grandpa Smurf, and he was very old and white bearded, and he was like the higher consciousness of the Smurfs, right? He was like that conscience and that guide of the Smurfs. So in such a gentle way to teach our little children. Well, now in our generation, there's another neat movie out called Inside Out. And it was done so wonderfully too. And it nailed it, man. And it nailed it because it gave you that control panel. And at any given time, somebody's got the control panel. Somebody's like, and it's like, so for me, I've got to make sure that I'm giving everybody the proper job, because I know that the angry guy is not supposed to be the one driving the car. He's not supposed to do that. That's not his job. He's allowed to stand up for political causes or for passionate causes and be an advocate for people, be a protector. He's allowed to channel that energy in a positive way. But there's nothing positive that the angry guy can do behind the wheel of a car. And I know that. So it's understanding that all these different aspects of me do serve a purpose. And that's what today's talk is about, is the greater good. So that greater good that we all have now, my next week's talk, I didn't actually talk about that in the announcements, is called Limelight, where we're going to go all out and go the other way with our egos and really boast and let ourselves boast and let ourselves be proud of all that is me, right? Because sometimes it's all part of the process. But before we get there, let's still work on those more, I'll say, more humble parts, or those deeper aspects of ourselves. And that somebody inside of us innately is always wanting to do something for the greater good. And it's like, and we've talked about different things like practicing random acts of kindness and truly doing it from an egoless place, to where perhaps you're driving down like the beeline and you hit the toll booth section and you pay for the person in back of you, but you don't even look back for the acknowledgement. You don't even get the reward. You just do it just to do it. And there's sometimes you can look back and get the reward too, but to do both. But to just do it in equanimity with no good, no bad, no good feeling, just to do it, just to practice literally a random act of kindness for the greater good. Knowing that in some way, shape, or form, that's going to have that ripple effect that, you know, pretty much all of us are understanding, the ripple effect, the butterfly effect, and how one thing leads to another. I talked about it a little bit last week when I talked about the story of a poor village somewhere in an impoverished country. I don't remember all the facts and figures, but it's the gist of the story that matters. And a little girl who wanted to go to school in a place where, one, girls didn't go to school, and two, the family couldn't afford to send her because they only had one goat, and it produced only enough cheese and milk for them to make cheeses and stuff like that to support their family, because their other goat had died. So this meant that this girl not only couldn't go to school, which was unheard of because she was a girl, but had to work and do other things to make money for the family. But then somewhere miles, thousands of miles away, in a small community church just like this, a really small community, they wanted to do something for the greater good. They just wanted to do something that helped and helped someone somewhere. They heard about these villages where they support themselves on goats and making milk and cheeses, and this is how they thrive. So they decided to buy a goat and send it to a random family in a random village, and it landed in this girl's family. And now the girl was able to go to school because they had two goats. And not only did she go to school, but because of how brilliant she really was, she ended up coming to America and went to college and became a lawyer. And then she went back to her country, into her village, and started empowering women and girls to be able to, I'm going to get choked up, to be able to be educated and change the culture of a whole village. Because one day, somewhere, one community said, let's do something for the greater good. Now, they may have heard the story and gotten the feedback of it, but they never met the girl. Nobody ever went to the village. So, you know, sometimes when we do something for the greater good, we may not be the ones that get to witness the miracles, but we have to understand that it happens anyway, and to do it anyway. You know, there's so many different definitions of karma and dharma in this world. And I like Ram Dass's definition of karma, and I've used it for years now because it's such a clean definition, that karma are the predispositions that we have that underlie our attractions, and aversions, things that we attract to us, things that we repel from us. And then Dharma is just doing the right thing because it's the right thing to do, with no reward thoughts, or no, well, I'll build up my karma points, or this will put me in good graces with the universe, for nothing else but to do it just because it's the right thing to do. And when we see people in dire straits or in trauma or drama, like an accident happens, there's a mechanism within most of us that immediately acts and goes and helps without any thought. We immediately respond and go tend to that human being in whatever way we can for their greater good, to help them in that moment. And there's no thoughts of reward in the moment. It's raw and it's real, and it's natural, and it's part of who we are. But when we transcend those things into other parts of our lives, sometimes our egos get in the way. Those different aspects of our egos get in the way. Sometimes they get in the way so much that they'll actually doubt that you have, they'll give you doubt that you have anything to offer the greater good. And what I'm saying is that's a fear thought. That's a thought trying to separate you from the wonder of you. Because in all the different selves that we have within us, they're all sacred. They're all wonderful, even if they're hurt. Even like Julie and I were talking earlier before about when we find those moments in our lives where we slip into depressions, to never beat ourselves up for that, because that person was just as valid as the person who was jubilant and deserves to be loved and honored and validated inside the existence, inside the experience, just as much. Now, does it serve the greater good to stay in depression and getting away from good or bad? And does it serve or disserve me? And how can I take those aspects of me and have them serve the greater good? So I'm always really silly with all the different aspects of my personality. And I like the way the different movies have brought them up and personified them. And some of the ways I'll personify that OCD part of me is I'll say the Rain Man within me, because a lot of us have seen that movie Rain Man. And to just give it a place to look at as a character, so you're not beating yourself up. But what does that serve me? So, for example, the paranoid part of me, how does it serve me? It's like, well, it came online to protect me from who was going to get me, because that's what they do, right? They're always looking for who's going to get me, who's coming after me, who is it? Men at Work did a whole song of "Who Can It Be Now?" So it's like, and probably just knowing the human condition, that we've all probably experienced the levels of fortune and good fortune, misfortune and good fortune during those times of misfortune, that knock on the door, that phone call does strike that paranoid part of us, because we're afraid we don't have the money to meet the bill or the criteria of whoever's knocking at the door. So it comes up for many different reasons. What a lovely day this is, coyote-wise. It's all good. But to give credence to their energy and to know that they have value. So for me, I have let the paranoid part of me be the door watcher. It's like that's his job. He gets to watch all the doors in all the buildings I ever go anywhere, and he's very happy with that. And I send him over there, and every once in a while I'll playfully say, how's it going? He's like, we're fine, no one's coming. I'm like, good. And when somebody is coming, and he'll give me the red alert, someone's coming, sometimes I have to tell him stuff like, it's a nun, we'll be okay. She's safe. And when it's somebody that, because of the filters that we have throughout this lifetime, and because perhaps that moment of fear jumped in their body and they forgot to look through the eyes of love, and they ascertained that being and became afraid and gave me a red alert because the big biker was coming at us. Well, that's scary, right? You really need alerted, right? It's like, well, when I looked with the eyes of love and then saw that big biker and looked in his eyes, I saw that he came here for hugs. He came here to be nurtured. He came here to get in touch with that part of himself too. And there was nothing to be afraid of. So that everybody's got the greater good within themselves if I give them a job. So I created some little flyers, not flyers, what do you call it? Pieces of paper that have words on them. I just get my brain back later. Yes, thank you. So pass them along. So what I'm inviting us to do today is this. I think I have 10 or 11 aspects of our personality. And give me one back so I can keep up with what I wrote. If you would like to pass pens along the way as well. So we're in an interactive place as well. My biggest mantra in my ministry as a minister, be it here at the pod, be it in the books I write and anything I do, is that my mission is to take you on a journey to the center of the universe, a journey into the inner depths of your inner space, all through the portal of your heart. And sometimes the portal of your heart is going to discover there's different aspects of you that create different feelings within you. So I've got my warrior, my peacekeeper, my inner child, my divine God, goddess, my fear, my poet, artist, creative personality within you. It may show up musician, may show up differently for everybody. My anger, my grief, my sacred sexual lover, my paranoid guy or gal, I forgot to put slash there, and my obsessive self or my OCD self, or for me, what I call Rain Man. So what I'm inviting us to do now is to take a moment and to be as honest with yourself, and you can share this playfully or you can never share with another soul. It's always up to you. But to really look at each one of those words as a separate part of you. And I could have made a completely different list, and I could have made an on and on and on and on list, because we all have these different aspects of our personality. Or if you want to take it from, as I was in the jewelry business for 12 years, the diamonds were a different facet of the diamond. So there's many facets to yourself, and to honor these facets. So just as I may be a poet, I also like higher math and wish I would have learned it more. So I have that intellect part of me. So I wrote these ones down. These ones. I wrote the. I have to reboot my mouth. So to really sit there for each sentence and go, how can my warrior aspect, the ego, separate personality of my warrior, add to the greater good? And go inside and ask that, because he, she will tell you. How will my peacekeeper add to the greater good? Because you'll be surprised. How will my anger add to the greater good? That's some of the answers that you're going to get. Because remember, the oracle is always within us. So if you can tap into Miss Rachel a little bit of like meditation, tranquil music, and I'll let you guys be within yourselves for this, and take your time. Are we still live streaming? So for the people that are live streaming at home, I'm going to give you the list, and you can just write this down. And you might have caught it because I did say it a moment ago. My warrior, my peacekeeper, my inner child, my divine God, goddess, my fear, my poet, artist, creative personality, my anger, my grief, my sacred sexual lover, my paranoid guy or gal, and my obsessive self or OCD self. And just take time with yourself and write them down. And if you have other parts of your personality that you want to add to the list, feel free. How do they serve the greater good? Figure a couple more minutes for everyone. So if you haven't finished, that's okay. I invite us to take these home, uh, create your own list, because you know you, You know, those aspects, it's like we all have multiple personalities. The difference between us and people with multiple personality disorder is the D, is the disorder part. We all have very many facets to the aspects of the wondrous being that we are. And as we're getting to know ourselves and awakening more and more, you know, the word apocalypse means to mean remove the seal, to reveal, to take off the veil. So all we're doing is taking off more and more veils into our own selves. So whatever level of vision that you have within is going to assist you in this exercise and future exercises to get in touch with these aspects of yourself. Maybe you're not in touch with your fear. Maybe you're not in touch with your creative. Maybe you're not in touch with your grief. Maybe you are. It's like maybe you're in touch with a different aspect that I listed here. That's why I said there's only a few. But the idea is to truly go into these parts of ourselves so that we can almost integrate them and honor ourselves as a broader being, but also honor ourselves for the aspects within us that bring something different to the game. And when I say for the greater good, I mean beyond what's good for me and beyond what's good for you in your personal endeavors. We're allowed to do that kind of stuff, and that's what next week's talk is going to be about. Limelight, being able to stand in that limelight and doing whatever you want and shouting at the top of the mountain, here I am. But first, let's go to that place that I believe that sometimes when we get stuck in as humans in allowing ourselves to be all that we can be personally is because we have an innate thing within us to serve. So if we allow these aspects within us to serve for the greater good and give them the jobs that their talents will match, then we'll allow those other ego selves within us to shine. And we'll do more of that in next week's talk, because I don't want to talk about that this week. What I want to talk more about this week is what we did talk about, and inviting you into looking within yourself, into really honoring these aspects. What does my warrior have to offer to the greater good? Well, for us, luckily, we're in a day and age where we're living in a pretty peaceful community, and we have our police officers that have dedicated their lives, men and women, to serve and protect that greater community. So we've kind of deferred a little bit into that warrior energy for those kind of people. But within me, I'm part of a tribe, and within that tribe, there was protectors. That energy is still within me. It may show up in my family, immediate family, like as a dad, may show up at in a greater, broader perspective as a leader of a spiritual community. If somebody, a bad guy, was going to come in, and you'd see that energy jump up in me. But just the energy itself, what does he or she have to offer the greater good? And it may be different for me. It may be different for you. It's like one of the things for me that I believe in my warriors, that, you know, even if I was on a hunt, because it was the warriors that did the hunt for the people too, is that I've received and appreciated and embraced the lessons of my animal brothers and sisters as a giveaway for me to sustain myself that day. So one of the things that my warrior would bring to the game for the greater good is to remind other hunters that when they do that kill, to honor the kill, to love it, to appreciate it, to know it's a brother and a sister that just sustained us. Because some of the hunters in our day and age forgot that, and they just hunt. And then they'll almost be disrespectful with the being and throw parts away. It's like, wow, the tribes knew that the whole being could be used for the greater good of the people. So how can I use all of me for the greater good of the people? Even the things I think are ugly, like my anger. How do I use my anger? No, that's the part I need to stuff away from society and keep it away. So that's what I can do for the greater good, is just stuff it inside, right? So I never hurt anybody with my anger. And that's not true. That's called violence. Anger isn't violent. When I know how to channel my anger and own it, then I can liken it to passion and realize I'm fired up about this. Fill in the blank. It may be different for all of us. So these are just examples. Everything I say and everything I do here is always going to lead us to that inside job. The higher it's very easy to be Zen by yourself in a cave on the top of a mountain. We have all the neat Zen stories of the monks on top of the mountain, which is groovy because they're groovy, neat Zen stories that teach us neat stuff. But in reality, it's a lot harder for me to do these things. It's more of a challenge when I have to do it with people, because that's what we bump up against every day is other egos. Well, when I can see that part of me, now I can flip that again and go, well, how do I know what that part of their ego, even though I may not like it in the moment for whatever's plugging me into, does for the greater good? Let me just get out of the way and let them do their thing for the greater good, because in this moment it may be just to teach me how to be more humble, or how to be a kinder person, or how to go up to somebody who's stuck in anger and say, you need a hug. You never know what it's going to be. Don't judge it. Let go of the expectations of it, and never ask why. Throw that question out. Take it away from the English language, because all it does is send us backwards and ask for pain. It asks us, why am I not happy? Why am I dysfunctional? Why is everything negative? But how did I get here will give you some steps, and you sometimes have to own the missteps along the way, but it'll give you direction without the flogging. And it will also give you direction into the future. So how is a wonderful question for all these. How can my inner child serve that greater good? How does my anger serve the greater good? And be with it. This isn't a test question to retort back an answer to me or anybody except you and spirit. It's an inside job. But when you do these things and you ask yourself these questions, not only will raise you in your own higher consciousness, because that's the idea, raising our own vibrations, but you'll enjoy doing things for the greater good, because sometimes the reward is simply, it feels good to be kind. You know, sometimes in this metaphysical and new age and new thought, you know, some of the people are like, it's too airy fairy, love, love, love. And they don't now the word love is a bad word. It's like, okay, can we just be kind to each other then? Can we soften it to that? And to know that my kindness adds to the greater good in everything we do. And then when I'm walking around in that in my life, knowing that I'm allowing even what I would judge as the most strangest part of me add to the greater good of the world. Sometimes the eccentric parts of me can be really silly and make people laugh. And if they're laughing in that moment, they're not grieving. In that moment, they're not hurting. In that moment, they're in the light and joy. So if that's my giveaway to be a goofball for 5 minutes, then that's how I serve the greater good. It doesn't matter. No judgment, no expectations. Just allow yourself and be willing to look inside enough to own that you do have these ego selves, and love them for who they are. And if you have an ego self that's just really mean and wants to hurt people, deeper work to be done. We'll sit down with that ego self and listen deeper, because maybe they're just hurting themselves and need to be heard and haven't been, so they're lashing out. Because even they have a greater good to tell us. Sometimes we need to stop and listen to the people that are screaming and lashing out. So I invite us to take this with us this week. I invite us to take it with us in our lives, and to appreciate that different aspects of us and how they help that greater good beyond our own reward, beyond the reward of any one individual, but just for the greater good of us all, as the us, the we, the collective. Thank you. So it is. And now a groovy song with Julie. And I never did get a copy, so slide me a copy real quick.
Yeah, I'll be singing. I can sing the first chorus if you don't know it, and then so this list is really interesting. There's always a reason. There's always a reason you are where you are, huh? So about a month ago, my cat went missing, and this little tiny little feral kitten that I tamed and turned into a house cat, and I loved her from the second I met her. So she went missing, and come to find out, a neighbor had trapped her and took her to Merritt Island and dumped her. I live in Cocoa. So I've never met this man, but he's a legend in our neighborhood, and everybody hates him. And I was scared to death, but I went and I knocked on the door, and he came out. He was defensive, and he's a very angry, paranoid man. And all of a sudden, my peacekeeper, my empathizer, kicked in. It was like I was on automatic pilot, and he was telling me all the problems he's had with these feral cats, killing all the wildlife and getting in his trees and going after the birds. And I said, I bet they're pooping in your yard too. I mean, I just like totally got it. I got where he was coming from. He said, one of the neighbors counted 55 cats in this dumpster down the street. And I'm like, wow, 55 cats. So I just automatically empathized with him. And then he was just so angry, but he calmed down a bit. And he denied having my cat. And then I started getting teared up. And I said, please, just tell me, did you see my cat? Is she alive? And he told me that he had taken her into Merritt Island and dumped her. She was alive somewhere in Merritt Island. And for a moment, I saw compassion in him. And it was pretty incredible, because here's this angry man that everybody hates. The whole neighborhood can't stand him. And here I was connecting with him for a moment. And that's stuck with me. It's been over a month now. Oh no, it was a couple weeks after that I talked to him. But it's been weeks now, and that's the part. And I just can't. I posted on Facebook, and everybody's so angry and what a jerk, and they've got some choice words for him, but I understand where he's coming from. I personally would not go that route. There's a better way, I think, but I can't be angry with him. I can't. And to me, that connection part was huge. So I saw him driving around, and I don't think he recognized me, and he just looked so angry and paranoid. And I have compassion for this man. He's going through his life like this and alienating all these people. And he's not killing the cats, which is good, but he just wants them out of his neighborhood. So that part, yeah, and I've got people that are have his name and address, and they're going to check into this, but